Hola chicos, en esta lección vamos a aprender a conjugar los verbos irregulares yo del subjuntivo. Hello guys, in this lesson we are going to learn how to conjugate the irregular yo verbs in the subjunctive form. I have posted the notes that accompany this presentation in your Google Classroom. Please be sure to have your notes handy and use them while viewing the presentation. Irregular yo verbs have four categories. They have the C that turn into ZC. They have the yo-go verbs, which are the verbs that change in the yo form to GO. They have the verbs that add the Y, and the verb ver. So let's take a look at each and every one of these individually. First, let's look at the Z-C verbs. The Z-C verbs all end in ser or cir. For example, conducir, conocer, establecer, nacer, y traducir. Conocer, as you may remember when we did present tense form, changes to yo conozco. The reason we add the Z is to maintain the C sound of the word. If we don't add the C, the word would read yo conozco. It doesn't have the C sound of conocer. Adding the Z causes you to keep that phonetic sound, yo conozco. As you can see, when we conjugate in the subjunctive, the change from a C to a ZC happens in all forms of the verb, not just in the yo form, as it does in the present tense form. So the verb now becomes yo conozca, tú conozcas, él conozca, nosotros conozcamos, y ellos conozcan. Now let's take a look at yo-go verbs in the subjunctive form. These verbs include caer, decir, hacer, oír, poner, salir, tener, traer, and venir. As we remember, these are the verbs that change to a GO in the yo form of the verb. For example, salir in the present tense changes to yo salgo, tú sales, él sale, nosotros salimos, ellos salen. See how the verb only changes to a GO in the yo form of the verb. In the subjunctive form, however, these verbs change in all forms of the verb, except we drop the O and add an A instead. And the verb now reads yo salga, tú salgas, él salga, nosotros salgamos, ellos salgan. Now let's take a look at the verbs that add a Y. These are the verbs that have a vowel immediately before the IR ending, such as construir, destruir, distribuir, huir, and incluir. These verbs will maintain the Y spelling except we drop the O and add the A. For the subjunctive, they will read yo construya, tú construyas, él construya, nosotros construyamos, ellos construyan. Now let's take a look at the verb ver. Ver is a verb that is in a category all by itself. When we conjugate it in the present tense form, we say yo veo. But when we conjugate it in the subjunctive form, instead of the O, we add an A. And we carry the spelling throughout all of the subject pronouns. Yo vea, tú veas, él vea, nosotros veamos, ellos vean. Now that you have seen the four categories of yo verbs in the subjunctive, I'd like you to take a few minutes and practice them. In the first practiquemos section of your notes, please conjugate the following yo verbs in the subjunctive form. Pause the video if you need to. Now let's take a look at a new weirdo expression. And this is going to be the R of the word weirdo. And these are requests and recommendations. These are the verbs that request to recommend something for someone else to do, such as pedir, to request or ask for or to order. To recomendar is to recommend. Sugerir is to suggest. Let's take a look at an example. I recommend that you tell the truth. Yo recomiendo que tú digas la verdad. In the sentence, we have the two subjects required to form the subjunctive, which is yo and tú. We have the weirdo verb recomendar, to recommend. And we have the word que. This makes the verb decir form into the subjunctive, which is digas. Okay, so the sentence becomes yo recomiendo que tú digas la verdad. Okay, using the weirdo recommendation and request, I'd like you to practice translating these sentences. On the second practicamos section of your notes, please translate the following sentence using the weirdo recommend and request. This will conclude our lesson for today. Please take a minute and translate the sentences, and we will discuss them in class. Adios.